Well, that's what's so interesting about living in Western North Carolina is that we are sitting in arguably one of the most progressive cities in the United States, and you could drive 20 minutes in any direction and be on the total flip side of that.
Right, right. Not to mention the fact that, it's progressive but utterly segregated in ways that are, need to be dealt with.
Yeah.
So that was historically what had happened in North Carolina. There was a little bit better equilibrium among the haves and the have-nots. I think that's always been true. Now the influx of people, the fact that it's such an attractive state has brought in a lot of people who, frankly, have better educations and brought them away. We just did a piece yesterday on how poorly we're doing educating our own population and making them ready. And yet, if you take a look at people with post-secondary degrees, we're better than the national average. But if you look then at the number of native North Carolinians with post, we're now lower than the national average, meaning people come to this state with higher degrees to get good jobs. Most people are educated, and there's a correlation between education and progressive ideals. Yeah. And so a little bit, that's what's happening these days.
What do you think is the most underreported topic in the state that's affecting the state? Kind of a loaded question, but...
Yeah, and it's hard. I mean, I have to think about it. Underreported, I mean, there's the most important. I mean, I think the whittling away of democracy over the past 8 years and 9 years...
In terms of the state legislature, or...?
I mean, in terms of the ways in which voting laws have changed that have actually repressed the vote,
and all that.
Gerrymandering. These things have been found by the courts to repress the vote, and when you repress the vote, you are limiting democracy. I think that's a very scary proposition to see that we are willing to give up or whittle away at democratic institutions. You can't report on that enough to raise the alarm that we're losing something very, very valuable, at least as the courts see it. I mean, the courts have found that this is true, and that's democracy. Man, you take that away, and our chances are very slim for a good future.
So obviously, in terms of the human condition and society, there are common themes between racism and economic depressions, and it happens every generation. But are you optimistic about the future right now, where we are as a society, as a country?
No, I'm not. I would say that I actually literally think we're speciating. I think that we're becoming another species. I think that empathy is now what had been vital for the human species.
Almost like the last line of defense.
That's empathy. It. We had empathy. And you had to have empathy because we're social creatures. Notwithstanding arguments to the contrary, we didn't get here because we were competitive. We got here because we were collaborative.
Yeah.
We made societies. When we had to, we fought. If we had to fight over the last bone, we did. But mostly we got here through collaboration, and that required empathy as a genetic quality. I think empathy now is a liability.
Yeah.
I think the reason we're seeing over 50% of our population has either been on or is now on antidepressants.
Yeah.
Those are legal drugs. Then you add to that the illegal drugs and other markers of social discontent. Add all of those and the massive rise. You have 3/4 of our population signaling they can't take it.
Yeah.
Empathy is a big part of that.
And you throw a layer of technology on top of it, digital age.
Distraction, which also adds anxiety that's unrequited. How do I deal with this anxiety that comes at me every single time I look at that stupid phone?
Yeah.
You have people who can't even now. There isn't the medicine to treat that kind of anxiety, and so I think we're actually seeing epigenetic change in which the genome is recognizing, and it does happen quickly.
Yeah.
That we're going to have to dampen this empathy thing in order for these people to survive. I think we're actually seeing it. And if we dampen empathy, then we become a species that I don't recognize, and I frankly have a lot less hope for, because that's the only thing that's ever kept us from really destroying every last one of us. So I think at this point, and it's worse than that. It's more like we're just willing to go to the slaughter. Every time we press "I agree" on whatever digital app it is that's going to make your life easier, it's making your life harder, and it's taking away something. Some part of your humanity goes away when you literally take your vital signs and put them up on the cloud so that Google can analyze them and make better advertising to distract you from being alive. And so I mean, I thought if we could stay human, I'd have a lot of hope. I just don't think we are.
Yeah. Well, my last question is, you've been involved in journalism most of your life. What's been your biggest takeaway from this, that making this your career, and also, how you've viewed your time in this?
That even though I'm not optimistic, I want to keep doing it because it's what I do, because I am a human with sort of my genetic makeup. And that impels me to tell stories and to access and empathy, and that's what a story does, right? You have to connect with a person that I'm talking about that you can't see.
And connect with the listener and connect with everybody. Yeah.
So to bring all those people together through storytelling over distance to an audience I can't even see is an act of hope. So if you ask me if I'm optimistic, I'm not, and yet I live in the hope that something I can't foresee might happen. Yeah. And if it does, my contribution to that thing that I can't foresee, it would be continuing to tell the stories about people and how they coexist and how they empathize and how empathy is a powerful tool. Yeah. And that's, to me, why I keep doing it. I think of Mother Teresa. I mean, compare myself to Mother Teresa. I'm not Mother Teresa, but I think about, sort of when she's, we read in her diaries that she lost connection with God, and yet she could continue to go out there in the streets and do it because there was some larger hope that she had, but she couldn't shake. And that's kind of it. I don't really see the light at the end of the tunnel, but this is what I do, and I've always felt that it made a difference, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Well, thanks for chatting with me.